What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another meta update builds video. And it's been a while. Since I've done one of these. I think it's been like a couple months almost. So it's been about that time. I mean, Jesus, 3 new items came out since then. I mean, Equinox, Duality, and Curse Weaver, and then some items came in and out of the meta. Some new buffs, some new nerfs, and so yeah, I thought it'd be good to talk about it. We're on 11.5. 11.6 is coming up soon, so keep in mind there might be some things that have in there that might change a lot. I think it was 11.3 is when I did the meta update, and so we're on 11.5. So well, I guess 4 patches if you're technically counting the bonus balance. And there's so many new changes with 3 new items. So we'll see how it goes. But pretty much on every single god I try to see, every single class I try to see if there has been like a significant changes to builds, anything to consider to where it'd be appropriate to make a new update. If like one item changes where it's just like Equinox, for example, and nothing else in the meta changes, then it's like I don't feel like doing all that. But every single class has gotten pretty much some form or some type of change. So that's what we're here to do today. And let's just get into it, shall we? So I already have this set up. Let's go. We're gonna start off with your hunters, specifically your AA first up. Let me go ahead and put this here so you can see right here. Yeah, hunters. All right. So this time, instead of like adding the items to like a specific build like this, I'm gonna do it beforehand. So every time I cut, you'll just see a list of items. So you can like screenshot this after I explain it, or you can screenshot it right away down the explanation. But we're gonna do that. So AA hunters, actually, I guess I can just do it like this. AA hunters. So starting out with AA hunters, this is one of the role, or one of the classes that really hasn't changed much. So this one is going to be pretty short, and so is the ability based one. So nothing really much changed. You're still going deaths or Cal into leader's Cal, then you're going to go dominance, XE. One small thing I've been seeing, and I have been using a lot more. Actually, I think I wrote it down. Is Odysseus's bow. So you were still building Odysseus's bow beforehand. You'd actually go Kins, then Oboe, and then you'd pick like your Titan's Bane Aussie Silver Branch bow. But I've been liking the Oboe pick, and these 2 items usually change in and out. Again, this is a super cheap item, and with its procs, it gets your build on a lot quicker than a Kins, and especially it's a lot easier to do more damage if you're going up against double backline or assassin, which we have been seeing a little bit more of rather than the double tank. I still don't think double tank is the best team comp currently, but we have been seeing some of that. And so building Oboe there is actually pretty good too. Or if you just want Oboe online as soon as possible, then you can actually go Oboe here and then go Kins. And traditionally Kins was usually built this late anyways, so it doesn't really change too much from then. But obviously, if you're going up against tanks, you're going to need the Kittens as soon as possible. The health that you get, or the health that you do damage based in this passive, is always going to be good. Then you go into Oboe, and then you still have your basically your 3 items here. If you want to have more sustain, you can go Aussie. If you have a stim like a Hachi, for example, you can go Silver Branch to get those stacks. And then obviously you just go Titan's Bane, generally speaking, if you just want extra damage with its passive, because it's just so good right now. Or it's been good, sorry. One thing I have been liking more of, and it feels so weird to build this at this point into the build, but building a Devo's Gauntlet is actually really good, and I've been liking it. It's not like the cheapest, it's the same as Aussie, but with the amount of damage that you do late game, you can get this stacked up really easy. Like 1 or 2 backs and you have this already stacked up, and it does give you a lot. It gives you fucking a fuck ton of lifesteal. It doesn't show the stacks. You get pen, you get even more power, and you get I think 22.5% lifesteal which is what Aussie gives you once you reach below 60% health, which, you know, is what it is. But you get this right out the gate at all times, and you get a lot of power, which if you know, add the rest of the build here, you get so much more. I did want to add Death's Temper down here because I think Death's Toll is solid. Its early game is pretty good. You never really run out of mana, or you sustain really well with it. And then of course Death's Temper got a recent buff to where its passive gets like stacked in half so much quicker, and get those extra % damage in your basic. So I think Death's Temper is a really good item, and you can definitely pair this item with either Aussie or Devo's Gauntlet once you got Death's Temper, because Death's Temper doesn't give you sustain like Death's Toll does, or Death's Embrace. I don't like Death's Embrace on hunters all that much. But so you can go this. I think Leader's Cowl is just better though. That's just because of the Joust scene. And then we have Duality. I only put Duality here. I got hair in my mouth. Gross. The only reason I put Duality here is because it's a new item, and it recently got fucking huge buffs. Now its autos don't actually fucking get cut in half, where it was 50% of your autos transferred over to ability base, and the ability damage just wasn't good enough. So just this alone, the amount of damage you can do with Duality is really, really good on hunters, and you'll do so much damage, let alone talking about proc items. Proc items are just a bonus. You don't need to build proc items. You probably should, but you don't need to. So you can put Duality on certain gods like Medusa or Jingwei. I'll make sure to add this in my ability based hunter build too, but I just wanted to put this here just as like an added thing, like maybe if you wanted to. I don't think it's the best thing to go on the AA warrior, or I'm sorry, AA hunters, but it got a recent buff, and I feel remiss not to put this here on certain gods like Medusa or, I don't know, Neith for example. But Neith is kind of a ability based hunter. So I may check my notes. I did write a lot of notes for each class. Just want to make sure that everything is good. Yeah, I mean, this section is pretty short because nothing really much, but only really changes is Oboe. Devil's Gauntlet was already here before, just I didn't like it as much, but still I like this a lot more. And you still have your other three, but pretty simple, pretty much the same thing. And there is your AA hunters. We're going to go on to ability based hunters now. All right, and then we have our ability based hunters. Again, not much change here either, outside of maybe the way in which they're built. And I mean, that's pretty much it. There's a couple things I want to talk about though, and that dealing with, first of all, Blackthorn Hammer, which I still think is a very good item. It recently got buffed by 5 power and 50 health. Before, it was already an item that I thought was a really good, just a solid item. Like you could just build it straight up in early game, and basically have pseudo tank stats with its health, and having a lot of damage as well. So your early game with Blackthorn Hammer was so good. Now it's cheaper, and then it had 50 more health and 5 more power. Now they got recently nerfed an 11.5 bonus balance, where it now has 35 instead of 40 power. So like it's not as good, but you still have 350 health for 2,200 gold. It's cheaper than fucking Jotun's. Jotun's is now 2,400 gold, by the way, or 23. I can't remember. Actually, we can just fucking, because I put the glyph there. 23. Sorry. It was 22. It was the same as Blackthorn. Now it's, we'll talk about that in a second though. But Blackthorn Hammer has been on every single god that can build it. And the only reason I put it here is because of last patch, where you would actually build this on Medusa. You'd build this item first up on Medusa, and it would do so much. Now you still can. You're only missing 5 power. It's gonna hurt them a little bit more because of their scaling. They rely on scaling more than like warriors do, for example. But I just wanted to add it here just as a to show that it was a thing, and that even if you still go this on like a couple of gods like Medusa, or even like a Neith, you can actually, it still fucks and does a lot of damage. You get a lot of that value from this item too. And the other thing is duality. We're gonna talk about duality. Like I said earlier in my AA hunter a second ago, I think duality is very good on a couple of hunters. I think it's more of an assassin item, so keep that in mind. You don't build this every single time. But even on Uller, I think duality is pretty good. You get ability damage with 1 auto, and seeing as your Uller, usually you auto cancel whenever you use an ability. Usually you axe, change over, auto 3, auto 1, or any type of variation of that And so you can actually get a lot of value out of duality. You're only going to get like one proc within that single, so it's not like the greatest thing. But I mean, with Hydra's Lament, which you're always building on Uller, with duality, you know, Heartseeker, Jotuns, I mean, you're gonna have so much damage you can kind of one shot even better now with this item. I don't know if it's worth to on Uller to take out a extra 200 gold for duality instead of like Titan's Bane, for example, because that's probably where in the build you'd put it. But still an option. I think this build really fucks on Neith and Medusa, because with her 1 you can proc it, with her 2 you can, you know, after you use your 2 use an auto. I think on your actual autos and your 1 it works. And so you already do so much damage that an extra fucking, because your Viper shot does extra poison damage. Imagine a duality and procs with autos. It's so fucked. So I think duality is really good on her. But outside of that, like the main shit here, I can't remember what I said beforehand, or even if I went over ability hunters in my last one. I don't remember. But with like Uller, for example, you would go Bluestone, obviously, on every single ability-based hunter. You almost always go Bluestone, unless you're trying to cook something up. Beforehand, you would go straight into Trans, and I still think that's a good thing to do. But honestly, I think it's better to go Jotuns first and then go into Trans. And that's just my preference. You can go either or depending on how you want to do it. You can go Trans and Jotuns, or Jotuns into Trans. But I like Jotuns into Trans because, well, first of all, Jotun's got a nerf / buff, however you want to look at it. I got 100 gold, but I got 5 extra power. In my opinion, I think that's a pretty big buff. An extra 100 gold for Joust is not that much, and an extra 5 power is. So I like that a lot more than what it was before. You don't get it online as quick, but 100 gold isn't that much for Joust. So I like going Jotuns first just for that, and then Transcendence because of the recent changes to how you stack items. The more damage you do, the more you can stack things up. So obviously, intuitively, the later in the build you go, the more damage you're going to do. So you're going to be able to stack Transcendence a lot quicker the later you get it, and you're not going to be able to stack it as quickly the earlier you get it. So I like having that min-max, especially when, you know, buying Jotuns isn't that big of a deal anyways, but either or works. If you're Uller, you go into Hydras, into like a Titan's Bane, into a Heartseeker. You can interchange like Titan's Bane for Crusher or Brawler's Beat Stick if you need, you know, anti-heal. I think Titan's Bane is just so good. People maybe underlooked the Titan's Bane buff a while back, but I mean, you get 20%, or you get 40% pen, and with this build you actually get 60% pen, because if you don't know, you get 40% in one ability. So, you know, throw out your axe or something, it actually stacks on the Hydra's Lament percent pen, as well as or Hydra's Lament percent pen, as well as the Heartseeker percent pen. So you actually get 60% in one ability. Overall, if their passive's down on your Titan's Bane, you still have 40% pen, which I think is a lot better. Crusher is still very good. Brawler is a necessary evil if you need anti-heal. But that's basically your Uller build. I have these items up here as well, because for like gods like Neith or Medusa, I actually like, so pretty much the top part stays the same. You go Bluestone, Jotuns, Transcendence. You can go into like a Fail Not, Duality, into like a Heartseeker for like Medusa, for example. Now you can like interchange some items like Kins, because she can actually go both, but like for like a Neith, this would be pretty good, as well as Medusa. And even on Uller, you can actually go Fail Not if you would like. You go like Fail Not, or I'm sorry, you could go like Hydra's Fail Not, Titan's Bane, or something of that sort. You can kind of mix and match these items. And then, you know, Crusher, if you're going to build duality, I think you should, you know, prioritize having like Crusher, for example, or Heartseeker. You don't need it, but they're always there for your duality. So you could go Fail on Medusa, Fail Not, Duality, Heartseeker. You'll get a lot of procs off your Bluestone with your auto and your Heartseeker, while just having 40% CDR and doing so much fucking damage. I mean, that's basically it. There's not really other items. Other items that you would include here would be AA Warrior or AA Hunter. So you could go like, you know, Kins or some shit like that. I don't think XC's all that great for like most of your ability based, strictly ability based, because like, you know, AMC can kind of go both. But, you know, generally speaking, the biggest thing you want to pay attention to is Bluestone, Jotuns, and the Transcendence. That should be your always go to. Generally speaking, always go to this set right here of items, and then you can just mix and match these items right here. Blackthorn Hammer, I almost want to get rid of, but it's just there just in case, you know, you want to be freaky. You can interchange that with Jotuns, for example. But either way, this is sort of like your array of items you should be thinking about as a strictly ability based hunter, which, you know, like Marticarus, Uller, stuff like that. And actually, because Marticarus is, I guess we could put Soul Eater here for like Marticarus, but that's just a Marty item. That's not really anything crazy. So you could put Soul Eater here as well. Actually, I'll put it right here. Soul Eater right here. So sorry, I didn't put that in the beginning. You can also put this on MC as well. So should have put this here earlier, but that's also another option as well if you wanted that too, or in exchange for Transcendence, for example. But yeah, that is your ability-based hunter build. We're actually going to go on to the mages now. All right, on to mages. Actually, my favorite class, just personally for me. Pretty decent amount of changes. That man's yelling at me. But we can start out with the starter items. So there's really only 2 starter items that you kind of go as a mage. And that being Sands of Time and Conduit. Last time, Conduit got a big buff to its passive, making it to where it gives you the true damage a lot quicker and stacking up to 40 instead of 20 damage. Now, they recently buffed it, and I mean like a couple patches ago, I think, where they reduced the 40% true damage that you get to minions to 20, and that's basically it. So it's still a very good item. I think it's in a pretty good spot too. But with that buff and just playing it, it does feel good. Don't get me wrong, it does feel good. And on certain gods like Scylla, it is probably better to go Conduit. But generally speaking, I've been liking Sands of Time on those really good, you know, SS, not SS, but like A S tier picks like your Vulcan, Agni, Baba Yaga, E-Shell. I've been liking Sands of Time a lot more on these gods, so I have been building this way more. I mean, it just gives you so much for 700 gold. I mean, you get power, you get MP5 and its passive, you get cooldown, and then eventually, once you level it up, you get one of the best passives in the game, being alternate timeline. You get a bunch of protections and stuff like that. It's mainly the MP5 and cooldown that I like a lot more. Conduit Gem, you have a little bit of mana, and you do a lot more damage to the way, but you don't get the cooldown, which means items like, I didn't put it here, but items like Chronos Pendant is something you're going to want to almost always build with a Conduit Gem build. Otherwise, you're going to have to find some other types of cooldown with Soul Gems or Staff of Mirrodin. You're going to have to buy both of those just to get 30% cooldown, which is why Conduit Gem is really good with, I'm sorry, Chronos is really good with Conduit Gem, because you get 20 off the bat, and if you want to build one or the other, you have 30% instead of having to build Soul Gem and Staff of Mirrodin. You can get away with building Desto, Soul Gem, Staff of Mirrodin, but you get to build all 3 of them just to get 30%. Whereas if I go Sands of Time, now I have 20% with Spirit of Desolation, and I only need to build 1 Soul Gem or Staff of Mirrodin for that to get that 30%, which is, I just like it a lot more. So I guess it really depends on what you're looking for, but I've been heavily liking Sands of Time here. Just looking at my notes, I have a lot of notes here. But yeah, you can do that. I just don't like how because Chronos Pendant, the problem with Chronos Pendant is that it gives a lot of cooldown, MP5, and a little bit of power. And its passive obviously giving you a lot of fucking cooldown. My problem is that I hate how the passive doesn't have anything else. I mean, it's a crazy passive, but that's about it. I'd much rather have a fucking Ob Shard in there because of, it's just a better passive in terms of damage wise. If you're throwing out an ability for 40% pen with one ability, and you basically get the same amount of power as Chronos, I'd much rather that than a silly little Chronos, because you're gonna have your abilities going up, or you're gonna have your abilities cycling a lot with Chronos. But with Ob Shard, you just do so much more damage off of one ability. And speaking of like Vulcan, for example, who has short cooldowns to begin with, it's not going to be all that significant in my opinion, to where I'd much rather go Conduit than Chronos. Again, it's more preference, because I still think it's solid going Conduit with Chronos. Just my preference. So I have been liking Sands a lot more. And then I think pretty much the same start after this. I think I said it with Spirit Desolation. They buffed it, the T2, to where you get flat pen in it, which means that you're getting it right out the gate. And seeing as most gods don't have defense on that point, you know, flat pen is going to be really good on early game for a lot of your damage for gods, even if you are going up against tanks. So you pretty much go Spirit Desolation always, and then after that, well, actually, let's talk about Doom Orb. Doom Orb actually got recently buffed as well. It's it got cheaper by I think 100 gold. And then a little while ago they changed the percent pen to flat pen, which is just a thing that should have been already. If you're gonna build Doom Orb early, it should just be flat pen. And then I can't remember if they changed anything else, but basically it's a lot cheaper, and you have flat pen, so you're incentivized to build it even earlier as like a Doom Orb rush back in the day when that was a thing. So this is also an option too for your gods like Vulcan or Ishel or all those gods that value your movement speed a lot more than other gods would. So you can go Doom Orb. I like it on Ishel more than anything, but I still think Spirit Desolation, I only put it up here because you can go. I still don't think it's that great because it's 2,700 gold as opposed to 2,350 when this gives you so much more right out the gate than Doom Orb, for example. But you can always rush Doom Orb if you'd like. So I put that there. I actually like this around your 4th item slot, especially if you're going up against squishy gods. I guess I'll say this now too. I said it a little bit ago. I think double tank is the meta right now. I still think it's the best thing right now. But we have been seeing a little bit more hunters, a double squishy team comp, hunters and mages and like a guardian / warrior. Or we've actually been seeing a lot of assassins who will either go hybrid or tanky for the most part, which is basically double tank. So, but having flat pen against those squishier gods is going to be more valuable than percent pen, which means that you can actually build Doom Orb later in the build, or Soul Gem or Desolation and Divine Rune, have more value out of it. But with that, because double tanks are still very good right now, I've actually been liking Charon's Coin a lot more. I haven't built this item in a long time for Joust, just because Obshar just seems like a better item just to begin with its passive. But I've been liking Charon's Coin, and especially with gods who take advantage of movement speed like Vulcan, Ishel, who don't really have like a getaway, and Agni. Even those gods who don't need movement speed like Baba Yaga, for example, Charon's Coin, you can stack it really well with Baba's passive. So I think Charon's is actually a really good item. It's pretty cheap. It gives you 20% pen, it gives you HP 5, MP 5, and eventually once you stack it up to 8, if you stack it up to 8, you get movement speed, which is really good as well. Oops. So I've actually been liking Charon's Coin right after you get Spirit Desolation. It's cheap percent pen, and it gives you a lot of other stats as well. And eventually, obviously, you get your heads and tails. You get either movement speed, or HP 5, I believe. Yeah, 7 HP 5. So I mean, it's still a very good item even before it's you stack up its passive. So Charon's Coin is very good right here as well. I've been liking that item too. I've been building it on almost every single god, every single mage I've been playing. After that, you have basically your normal start. You have, or I'm sorry, your normal array of items. You have Soul Gem, that's been buffed. It's really good. It gives you, it's a luxury item. It gives you so much shit. It gives you health, lifesteal, cooldown, power, and it's passive. It's really, really good with other gods that can stack it, with gods that can stack it, like Vulcan, with his 2 that actually got buffed to where now it stacks, or now it procs Soul Gem. So Soul Gem would be really good on Vulcan, really good on Baba Yaga. Agni is really good with it. So you can always go Soul Gem here. Really, it depends on what you're going up against. If you're going up against a double squishy team comp where you want to be more like a tiny, like a semi tankier in like having to proc your passive with health, you can go Soul Gem. And even in the double tank, this is actually still pretty solid. You still get, with this build, you actually have 30% cooldown right now, and so you can go that too. But if you're going up against squishies, I'd say you almost every time you almost build this item, every single time at their Charons. And then obviously you have Staff of Mirrodin if you'd want. Staff of Mirrodin is really good on gods that can proc it. So, Vulcan can proc it. Agni obviously abuses this item, so you almost always build this on Agni. Like if this is an Agni build, you'd go straight into Staff of Mirrodin instead of Soul Gem. So there's certain instances where you wouldn't. And there's certain gods that don't. Cuckoo's very good with this item too, before I go into the, gods that don't proc this well. Morgan Le Fay doesn't proc this well. I can't remember. There's a list of it that I can link to, that shows all which gods that are good with Staff of Mirrodin and aren't good with Staff of Mirrodin. But Staff of Mirrodin, always good here in one of these, or always good to think about in one of these slots here. You can obviously go Soul Gem into Staff of Mirrodin. This is a pretty solid build. You can go either or. If you want a soul gem, you can go there, and then you know, Ob Shard is another item that you can think about going after too. So soul gem into Ob Shard, and remember, like I said with Titan's Bane, Ob Shard has a passive to where it's 40% basically with one ability, stacks with any other percent pen up to 40, so you can actually get 60% pen off of like one ability, which is nutty. Which is actually what I've been doing a lot with Vulcan, for example, against your tanks, just to fucking kill the shit out of them. Obsidian Shard and Charon's Coin, 40% pen just off the gate on your like fucking turret. That's gross. You'd be doing so much damage. But yeah, these 3 items right here. I'm sorry, these 4 items right here with Soul Reaver too. Soul Reaver is very good with tanks. And it gives you so much damage. It's basically like a Kins. You can kind of mix and match with these items. I will say that like if you wanted to go more percent pen, this is like a build that I go. So if I'm going up against double tanks that are super tanky, I go into Charon's Coin, into Obsidian Shard, into Reaver, and then E-Staff. E-Staff's here as well. And this is just where you just delete squishies. I'm sorry, tanks. You just delete them. Of course, you only have 20% CDR, so you have to keep that in mind. But for like a general build, I would either go into, like if I'm playing Vulcan and I'm going into a double tank team comp, I'd still go Soul Gem, Obsidian Shard, and Reaver. Reaver. Now you can obviously go Reaver first if you want to, and then Obsidian Shard. But I actually like getting Obsidian Shard a little bit quicker than Reaver. Either way, you can kind of mix and match these 4 items depending on your god, and it's really good. Just keep in mind, if you don't go Soul Gem or Mirrodin, you're only going to have 20% cooldown up until you can upgrade your starter, which I think you can go oops, wait, what am I thinking of? Alternate Timeline and then Pendulum of the Ages. You can go Pendulum of the Ages to get you those extra cooldown. You get 20% cooldown with this item, but I just think Alternate Timeline is better. I meant to put that up there sooner. But yeah, you can kind of mix and match with these items. Let's see. Oh, I meant to also say the Doom Orb you can put there too. If we're going up against a squishy team comp as well, you go Desolation, Charon's. I would go Soul Gem, Doom Orb, and then probably like a Reaver, for example. Like if I'm going up against a double backline, this would actually fuck the backline. You go Soul Gem for extra damage, you get double flat pen with Doom Orb and Desolation, and then Reaver is just good for extra damage if you wanted that. Extra procs of damage. You can just obviously go Ob Shard if you want to. I mean, you can kind of just, like I said, mix and match. But I wanted to talk about Doom Orb right there. Let's see. I talked about that. Yeah. So basically, you just kind of mix and match based off of like double backline. If you're going to go double backline, you do this, something like that. I mean, if you're going up against tanks, you can go like Soul Gem, Obsidian Shard, or Reaver. If you're playing like an Agni, I would probably do Staff of Mirrodin into Soul Reaver and like, you know, E-Staff. Or you can even do like fucking Staff of Mirrodin and Soul Gem into a Reaver, and you actually get max cooldown and you do so much more damage here. You get 30% pen. I mean, there's a lot of variations you can do here. And then that's that. And then obviously we're gonna get to this item here. You have Rod Up Tahuti. These items down here are just like dependent. Rod Up Tahuti, I think, has fallen a little bit in terms of like you building this every single time. You don't have a lot of room for it because of these other items that take it up. But obviously, you know, you can fit in Rod Up Tahuti if you really wanted to. You could go into a Staff of Mirrodin, Soul Reaver, and then Rod Up Tahuti. Is a very expensive item, but still very good. And then you actually have 30% CDR, and you have 40% pen with this build too. It's a lot more expensive, but you still can get this online, and it's still very good. So Rod Up Tahuti is another item you can think about going on. It's still very good. Divine Ruin, obviously you'd go instead of Desolation, and if you're gonna build Divine Ruin, make sure you get some more cooldown with Soul Gem. And it sucks because if you have to build Divine, it does suck. You can honestly, I mean, if you're going to be a simple squishy, you can actually make it work with like Divine, and then you know, Soul Gem, Mirrodin, and then like Reaver, for example. Basically all of these items here you can mix and match. And then you have last up. We have Gem of Isolation, which recently got buffed as well. So with its passive, applying it every 2.5 seconds, with your making it 30% slower and having their shields applied reduced by 50%. So I mean, if you're going up against gods like Geb, for example, or other, you know, they build Shell, both of them build Shell, you can actually build Gem of Isolation and get a lot of value out of this thing, as procs every 2.5 seconds. So that's also another dependent item. Last up we have is Cursed Weaver. So I think this item is dependent on the god that you play. You can build this on every single god if you want to. I think it's better on your Guardians, for example, but still very good on your mages as well. Specifically, this item is good on gods that already take advantage of that large mana pool or health pool, and specifically with gods like Cuckoo Khan. It gives you 250 mana. I think you always build this on Cuckoo Khan, like as one of your last items, and that's just because, I mean, Cuckoo already has a giant mana pool. So when you sneeze on someone, for example, and you have Curse Weaver and they use an ability, I mean, what's that? 3,200 mana pool. It's like fucking just 160 extra damage just right out the gate with Curse Weaver, not accounting for the health damage too. So you're getting up to like almost close to 300 damage per ability. So specific gods that take advantage of Curse Weaver, I think, is really good too. And you can still build it on gods that don't take advantage of it. I just don't think it's as important as like a Soul Reaver, because Soul Reaver is just a better version of Curse Weaver if you don't have that large mana / health pool. But I wanted to put this here just as, you know, an idea to go here, because again, you still get 100% of the damage you would throw out, so you're still healing a fuck ton, better than Soul Gem proc too. So I mean, if you didn't want to go Soul Gem and you wanted to get mirrored in Soul Reaver and Curse Weaver, you can do that too. So that item is very good as well, specifically towards the end of your build as well. So but that's basically it. If I was going to give a very general build, I've obviously go alternate timeline, obviously Desolation, Charons. This is for like any type of team comp, just for squishies, double tank. Charons, Soul Gem, Soul Reaver, and then I kind of like Ostrad better first, and then Soul Reaver. And this would be just like a general build you'd go into. But these are all the items you want to think about. You got your 2 starters here, but not as important because you kind of know what you go into. It's just basically alternate timeline. But this is your Mage build. All right, now we have our assassins. So I'm going to actually talk about 2 sets of builds here. And what I mean by that is, like, I'm going to tell you like the regular builds that we have, and then some new items that come in this meta that are really good on assassins. First up, we have Warrior's Axe, Bluestone, and Warding Sigil. These are your items that you're gonna always build on your assassins, whether that's Warrior's Axe, which is always your go-to if you just want a tanky, damagey, sustainy type item. Bluestone is there for if you want a lot more damage and MP5, HP5, and you can proc Bluestone with a lot of your abilities. And then Warding Sigil is just your high defense late in the game. Once you level it up to Infuse Sigil, doing a fuck ton of blow up damage, but it's generally more tanky. As it had, it's healing. It got recently buffed too. It gives you more protections, but you get healing for 1% of your max health, and you get more protections based on how many times you get hit by an ability, and it stacks up to 2 times. So you get an extra 10 protections, which is pretty decent. And generally speaking, I would just go Warrior's Axe, but these 3 are very good. And then obviously, if you know your Assassin's build, you either go full tank, like if you're playing Serket or Ravana, you can go into Gauntlet. I don't have Prophetic here, but you can go Prophetic if you stack it well. Runeforge, Glad Shield, Genji's, Pridwin, for like your tanky gods. Like, so for this would be good for like a Serket or like a Ravana. And then you have, this is just general build. You can like interchange, like you can even go like, instead of Pridwin, you can go Jotuns here. You can go Jotuns, you can go Titan's Bane. I mean, you still have other items like Spirit Robe and Mantle of Discord. I'd say just go back to the other video that shows all those items, because it goes in more depth here. This is more just a meta update for this god, or for this class. So I'm not going to go too much over this build. You got obviously your Gauntlet of Thebes into straight up damage. You go Jotuns, Hydras if it applies, Serrated, Titan's Bane. for like a general build. Basically, you just go straight damage here. And then, you know, you mix and match. I forgot to put beat stick here. If you have going up against squishy gods, you can go beat stick as well. Or if you have anti-heal, you can mix and match here. You can go Jotuns, beat stick, you know, serrated if you don't proc hydras into like a Titan's Bane. You can go into fucking goddamn serrated Titan's Bane Heartseeker. So there's a lot of things you can do here. But basically those are your two like general archetypes for your assassins. But we're actually gonna go into the builds that I've been liking a little bit more with two other items that I've already talked about but haven't gone over for assassins. All right, so like I said, those builds you can still go. You still go either your full tank depending on your god, or you can go gauntlet into straight damage. Still very good, solid builds. But I've been liking these recent new items that have either gotten buffed or just been introduced. So this is your list here. You still have your starters up here. Depending on which build you go will depend on what you want here, or just the playstyle of your god. But we'll go with Warrior's Axe, and let's talk about Blackthorn Hammer. Blackthorn Hammer, like I said earlier, been in the meta, got a huge buff, got a little bit of a nerf, so it's probably not going to be as good, but still very good. You know, as your first item. Think of this as a pseudo Gauntlet of Thebes. It gives you health, cooldown, mana, MP5. I mean, depending on your passive, obviously. And so, I mean, it just gives you so much. 350 health, think of that as like a fucking protections. Because although it's not technically protections, you're having more health, which means you're a lot more tankier, which means it takes a lot more damage for you to get killed. And on top of that, it's 2,200 gold. So going this straight up, I mean, I'm building this on most of every single assassin. This item was already good before the buff, and I still think it's better even after what it was before, because it still has 50 more health. You still have 35 power, but I mean 35 power is still pretty good for that low amount of gold. I guess I could talk about this right away now. I actually been seeing the double hammer build as well. It's very, very good. You get even more health if you're a god that procs the Runeforge hammer passive like Ravana or Circuit. Most of the assassins have some type of CC that proc Runeforge. And so, I mean, if you're not able to proc Runeforge, I wouldn't build this. But, you know, on those gods that can proc Runeforge, you can actually go double hammer, and you have a fuck ton of health. You have a 500 health from 2 items, and they're fairly cheap. So you basically have Pseudo Thebes with 80 power, basically, with 500 extra health, and you never run out of mana or HP 5, and you do 15% more damage if you use your consistent CC. So I mean, double hammer does so much damage, and you're so tanky. It's so good. I will say that it does fall off late game, so you know, once items come online on the enemy team, like Soul Reaper, Kins, or Heartseeker, for example, then you're gonna get demolished. So you do want to make sure you pay attention to that as well. I wouldn't go double hammer every single time. I think it's a little less good because of the Blackthorn nerf, but I still think it's a very think about this item when you go into Blackthorn. Other than that, I've been liking going straight into like a Jotuns. Jotuns got 5 extra power, very good on assassins, and because you're sort of tanky-ish here, you don't really want to. I personally, you can go Gauntlet of Thieves out of this, right? You can go Gauntlet right here, and you still have the early game spike, and then you know, get a little bit of defense here. But I actually like going into Jotuns. You're still very squishy, but then obviously going into your Spirit Robe or Mantle of the Discord, basically giving you your Gauntlet of Thebes, but with a lot more stats. Because with this build, you have max, or you have max cooldown, whereas Gauntlet you wouldn't. So I've actually been liking this start a lot more. Let me actually look at my notes here, make sure I didn't miss anything. Let's see. No, talked about that. Yeah, I mean, this is the build that I've been running a lot. And this is kind of your first 3 items here. Obviously, you go Spirit Robe or Mantle, depending on, you know, if you have a lot of CC, you go Mantle. If you don't need it and you need a cheaper item with a little bit less stats, then I'd go Spirit Robe. It does give you mitigations as well. So, I mean, both are very good. And then, you know, your last items you can, you know, round out with fucking either like a Titan's Bane into like a Heartseeker, which give you a fuck ton of damage. And then that would be sort of like your build here. I mean, this is sort of basically your one defense straight into damage with your gauntlet into straight into damage build, because I mean you do have a decent amount of protections, and if you go like fucking warding sigil, then you'll have even more. So I think this is a very good build to go to. I mean, not a lot of changes made it to where assassins, like the schema of you know, assassins have changed much. It's not like that. You still go you go one defense into straight damage, or you just go straight defense, and that's basically your build there. You can obviously, instead of going like a actually I'll just get rid of these. You have your bottom items that you can go instead as well. Obviously you talked about gauntlet, but you know, if you go warrior's axe, this, that, and then you go into like a Titan's Bane, you can go into like a Pridwin or something. I'm sorry, you go Titan's Bane into like a Heartseeker. You can, I like selling Blackthorn Hammer later in the game because it doesn't do as much. So you can actually get rid of Blackthorn and exchange it for like an Archdruids or a Pridwin, for example, and get more value out of that. Or you can even go a more damage item, like if you wanted Hydras, for example, or like any other damage item if you wanted. But that's like if you go way late in the game. Like you would sell Blackthorn Hammer after you buy your starter and have everything upgraded. But even still, let's say you wanted to you want to be a little bit more tankier but still do damage, you can get rid of Heartseeker, for example, and get like Archdruids, for example, Archdruids and then Titan's Bane, or you kind of mix and match like your last item. But that's that build. Let's talk about duality. So duality has been really good on your assassins, like I said earlier. Couple hunters, but mainly it's your assassins that can kind of auto cancel. So you got your fucking Hunbats, Bastet, obviously Daji. If you want to, you would build it on those gods specifically. I don't think you build on every single assassin, but duality is very good in for those gods. So for example, you can for that build, if you haven't seen my Hunbats video, I suggest you do. That one goes over duality, the build itself. With that build, I actually specifically went Jotuns into Hydras because, I mean, when you're building, it's basically another proc of like Hydras, but with ability damage, and you get procs. So actually, I wouldn't go Warrior's Axe. I'd actually go Bluestone for if you're building a duality build, because it does proc Bluestone well. Bluestone Brooch, fuck ton of damage. Jotuns, Hydras, because if you're building Hydras, if you're building duality god, then most likely the god that you're playing procs Hydras really well, and so is more of an incentive to just use an auto, get Hydras passive and duality passive. So I like to go Hydras here, then go into like a Spirit Robe or Mantle of Discord, and then from there go into your duality, and then last item Heartseeker. Like I said, this item duality does damage to begin with, just in its passive. Does a lot of damage, specifically against the squishies as well. So you don't even need the necessary procs for this build to be really good. You have Bluestone, that's good enough, and then obviously Heartseeker does just so much damage anyways, and it gives you procs, so it gives you more of like a incentive to build this item later anyways. So you have max CDR, you have a lot of fucking damage output, and I mean, I built this exact same build on Hunbats and I fucking fried. Other than that, you can go like Blackthorn instead of Jotun, so if you wanted that, it's still very good. You won't have as much CDR, but you can still go like Blackthorn, Hydras, this into duality, into Heartseeker. You can still do that if you want to be even a little bit more tankier, stuff like that. So that is your duality build, and these are sort of your items that you want to pay attention to with this specific build. Obviously you still have your other two builds, but and I think that's basically it. This is your assassin, second part of your assassin build. As I said, the other builds are still very good that I said earlier. We're gonna move on to, what are we moving on to? Guardians next. All right, now we have our Guardians. Oh shit, all right. So there's a lot of items, very similar to Warriors. You can build so many things. They have so many options. So complex, always depends on the circumstance of the team comp you're going up against, as well as the team comp you have. Seeing as you're the Guardian, you're gonna be more of your support, setup, peel type of damagey god. So not much has changed with them either. They're still very complex with so many items. Outside of a couple things very similar to like Hunters, for example, with the starter items, they have way more because Sigil recently got buffed, they have way more options in terms of starter items. So you always have your Sands, you always have your Conduit, you always have your Warrior's Axe. Conduit, not as good, still okay. Not as good as it would be on like Mages, for example, but Conduit is still okay. Still with the nerf and everything, you still do a lot of damage, but I think it's just better to either go Axe, Sands, or Warding Sigil, although it's there if you just want to do more damage. Warrior's Axe, always your go-to, like I said, with like your Assassins, for example. Sigil recently got buffed to where now it's actually built on Magical Gods, so you can actually build this and get a lot of protection. So if you want to be super tanky with a passive like Infused Sigil, I think this is better. One of your classes that's better to go on is Warding Sigil, and just because you're more tanky. And you have options to either go Infused Sigil or to have damage mitigation with Sigil of the Old Guard. So Sigil's super good on Guardians right now. And then obviously Sands of Time. Sands of Time, very similar to Mages. Cooldown, MP5, and that's the basic thing about it. And then obviously your alternate timeline. For Cookie, to figure out which one you want to go to, Cookie Cutter, Sands of Time, you can always just go Sands of Time into like your build, into like Gauntlet, everything, for your cooldown and everything. Keep in mind you will be squishy very early into the game, as you'll only get Gauntlet, Thebes tier 1, and Sands of Time, so you'll be super squishy, so you're going to want to play a little bit more cautiously if you're going to go Sands of Time until you get some more defense online. If you want to be more tanky and not have to worry about, that, you go into Warrior's Axe, into Gauntlet of Thebes, still very good. Sundering Axe, so good late game, especially seeing as you're building full tank anyways, so I have a lot of value out of that. But if you want to be super tanky, have Warding Sigil and Gauntlet. You can do so much early game. You get tagged by some damage, you actually get more protection, so it's very good to go Warding Sigil. My preference recently has been Sands of Time, just going to alternate timeline because of how clutch it is on Guardians. I think it's way better on Guardians than it is on Mages, just because it does give you 40% of your health and mana back, which 40% of like 4,000 health is close to 2k health, as opposed to 40% of 2k, which is like damn near 800 to, it's not as much. And you have a lot of protections to mitigate shit like that. So I actually like going into Sands of Time. But if I were to go, if I were to not do this, I'd either go Warrior's Axe to Warding Sigil, more along Warding Sigil just because of its passive, making you more tanky. But those are your starters. And then pretty much right here, this part right here, these items right here are sort of like your cookie cutter, just go to every single time if you want on most Guardians. Most of your good Guardians, obviously you wouldn't build Kefri with this. But, Gauntlet Thebes, obviously, I mean, if you can stack Prophetic Cloak like Cthulhu, for example, I'd go Prophetic Cloak here. Glad Shield on most of your Guardians, like even Fafnir, actually, I'm thinking about it. But I was thinking of just like Cthulhu, Xingqian, Bacchus, like I said, Fafnir. Who else? I mean, Cerberus is pretty good on this. I'm trying to think of Guardians right now, and I can't think of any. Sobek, I mean, this is like a cookie cutter. You don't always build this, but you can always just go Glad Shield. Talisman, because still Hunters are really good right now. But on top of that, you also get movement speed on this as well. If you need some magical D, you can go just Talisman. It's very good. Relic Dagger, just get more cooldown, and you're always throwing out your relics. I mean, a lot of Guardians go Blink, especially on Xingqian. You want to go Blink. Sunder, very good against double tank because we're still in the double tank meta, so you can get Relic Dagger pretty much all the time. I'd go into not Bewitched, Eldritch Dagger. And then obviously if you're gonna be more of your solo tank type of, or solo queue Guardian, you go into E-Staff, or new item, which is Curse Weaver. Like I said with the mages, this is a lot better on your Guardians. I did write some things down here, make sure if it's important, or blah blah blah. So with this item, you don't do as much damage as you would with E-Staff, just because of its passive and everything, compared to Curse Weaver. But on your gods that can take advantage of it, like Xingqian, who has a fuck ton of health, or Cthulhu and his ult, who has even more health, or if you have a more mana pool centric build, like with Breastplate of Valor and stuff like that, you can actually get a lot of damage, specifically on those gods that take advantage of it. You almost always want to build it. Now the damage doesn't do as much, like I said, but with there's an added part of Curse Weaver where you get healing, so you get 100% of the damage dealt, and so you actually just every time you throw an ability and they fucking use an ability, you just heal, so you even get more sustain. So like on a god like Jing Chen, you can still go Ethereal Staff and it's very good, but you can go Curse Weaver, do some damage, but also heal 200 to 300 every time you use it. So, because remember, it goes based off of your maximum mana and health. So it's basically like a similar item to Ethereal Staff insert in terms of tankiness where you heal. Because E-Staff, you take a portion of their maximum health and mana, which is essentially the same thing as Curse Weaver. But Curse Weaver, you proc it more often. Oh well, no, actually, I think it's the same exact thing. But E-Staff stacks it expires after I think 45 seconds, whereas Curse Weaver, you just keep getting it and keep getting it and keep getting it. But I mean, both are still very, very good. I don't think it's as broken as I thought it was going to be. But it makes you nigh unkillable on those certain gods like Jing Chen or Cthulhu. So Curse Weaver is always going to be a good item to pick up, generally speaking. And then I have Tablet of Destinies. In certain comps, like if you're playing Charon, Cthulhu, or like a Jing Chen, I wrote someone else down here. I can't find it. But those gods are really good with Tablet of Destinies. And specifically against, you would only really build this if you're going up against tank team comp, like a double tank team comp, just so you can get more value of that true damage. Generally speaking, though, if you're going to build this item, I would build it like third. And it's a little late, especially for Joust. But as a Guardian, you're kind of throwing out your ability all the time. Whereas a mage, it takes, you're still stepping back behind the back line or the front line just not to die. Whereas you're stepping in, so you're stacking Tablet every single time you use an ability. So Tablet of Destinies is like a third item if you're going up against tanks. Keep in mind, you do want to make sure you're going to probably try and build Breastplate of Valor, because again, Breastplate of Valor gives you mana, which allows you to do more damage. Tablet, 20% CDR, stuff like that. So Tablet's there as well. But that's basically it for the Guardians. I mean, you have all these other items like Breastplate, like I said, Void Shield if you want to increase your team's damage. If if you have two physicals, like you're a Guardian, Hunter, and a Warrior, then you might want to think about Void Shield. Damaro is very similar. If you have a Mage and you're like Jing Chen, who does a lot of damage, Void Damaro would be good. Pridwin is always good in spot like a Relic Dagger, for example. Like if you do this, Glad Shield, Pridwin, that's very good. Again, Void Shield would be like in spot of Glad Shield. So if you went that, you'd go like Void Shield. You can obviously go Void Shield, Void Damaro. I don't necessarily like that as much. I like going like Talisman, or if you're going to do that, you'd go, if you're going to Damaro, you'd go like Glad Shield, Damaro. But these items are always good to think about. Spirit Robe as well, and Mantle Discord, just all around very good. One thing to keep in mind, if like you go this build, for example, and you don't want E-Staff, you're with like your trio stacked or something, you can obviously go into like a Spirit Robe or Mantle of Discord, just make it more tankier, just so you don't die. But if you're gonna go solo queue, I'd prefer the more damage just to carry a little bit more. And then obviously you have your anti-heal, and then like obviously Midgard if you're going up against a Hunter or AA Warrior. Midgard's gonna be super good to think about. Contagion and Pestilence for anti-heal. And that's pretty much it. You can obviously go Divine if you wanted to, so I'll add this here. Like, you don't really want to. You want to make sure you get these ones, Pestilence or Contagion. But, I mean, Divine's always good, too. But, yeah. So this is basically your build. Right here is your starters. This is like your cookie cutter build right here for items you're thinking about. And then these are your substitutes based on, situations, what you want. So here's your top right here if you want a screenshot. Here's your bottom if you want your screenshot. And, yeah, there's your Guardians. On to AA Warriors. All right, second to last, we got AA Warriors. Yeah, AA Warriors has taken a little bit of a back step recently, with ability-based warriors being buffed with like just buffed to gods in general and to some items, while items like Equinox got nerfed. Ability-based warriors are a little bit above your AA warriors, but AA warriors are still very good. And like Guardians, they haven't changed too much, but I haven't talked about one specific item, and that being Equinox, if you don't remember, Equinox was a turbo busted item that you would build straight out the gate, and you'd have so much sustain, you'd have so much attack speed, movement speed. You actually get the cap attack speed with this exact build set up here. So they recently nerfed it, and they nerfed it twice, I think. I still think it's a very good item. It went from like a SS tier item to like a A plus tier item. And so an A plus is still very good, and it's still 2150. Keep that in mind. It's a very cheap item. So I still think it's a good item to build, and it's in this build right now. So other than that, not much changed. You still have your Acts of Animosity, Berserkers into Shoguns or Talisman Energy after this item. You either go Equinox or you would go into Xe. I put in Venom Xe just because I think it's better than the other one for your AA warriors. You can obviously go the other one, but still think this is your go-to one to upgrade your glyph. You would either go Equinox or Xe. If you're going up against like your tanks, then obviously Xe. If you're going up against squishies or you don't feel like you need as much percent pen, then you can go like Equinox. Let's say you're going up against like an Assassin, Guardian, and a Mage, for example. You may feel like you want to get Equinox instead. With that, you can go into Shoguns or Talisman, same stuff. And then go into Spirit Robe, Mantle, or go into Pridwin. Remember, I've been liking Pridwin a lot more recently. And that's kind of because Venom Xe got nerfed the last time I talked about it, where instead of it automatically applying 40% reduction in healing and 50% in shields, now it's now you have to stack it up to 4 times, very similar to Xe passive. So it makes it to where you don't automatically just reduce 50% of shields, which means Pridwin is a little bit better. And I specifically like it on like Bologna. And then Kins. And that's basically your go-to build. Here are your items down here. If you're going up against, you know, an AA heavy team, like you're going up against the AA warrior in a mate or in a hunter, then you switch out Berserkers with Phalanx. Frostbound is really good now too. I think they buffed that as well to where now it's every 3 seconds. Instead, I think it was 5. So Frostbound is really good if you want that instead of like Equinox or Xe, for example. You can go that there. Midgard just as an addition to like if you're going up against AA warriors and hunters, and then Rune Forge on specific gods that have a lot of CC. So gods like Erlong. I guess you can technically do it on like Bologna and Amma, but it's not as good because it's not really in their ult. But you know, think of Rune Forge in the specific gods as well that can take advantage of it. But yeah, that's basically your AA warriors. Not really much changes to Equinox and the fact that they're not as good as regular ability-based warriors. So quick, short, simple, to the point. There's your AA warriors. All right, finally we have our ability. Oh, I meant to add that. Ability-based warriors. And starting out with the starters. Well, I guess I could just say that, I mean, sort of what I said earlier. Ability-based warriors are better. Gods like Cuchulainn, Herc, Mulan, all these gods, even Guan, got a lot of buffs. While also like Osiris got nerfs as well. So I think ability-based warriors are a little bit better than AA right now. Blackthorn Hammer got buffed, still technically a buff. Here's my cat, nice. Yeah, but very similar to the Guardians, your Warrior's Axe, Bluestone, and Warding Sigil will depend on what you want. With ability-based warriors, I think Warrior's Axe is just better. Obviously, you want to be tanky, you can go Warding Sigil, but I think Warrior's Axe, based on what it's for, is good for your warriors more than anything. Very similar what I said with Assassins and some Hunters, being really only one Medusa. Blackthorn Hammer got buffed. So you can always go Blackthorn first. I don't really like building Gauntlet on a lot of your warriors. I don't think it's as good, but Blackthorn is still very good to just go straight into. All the other reasons that I said earlier. It's just very good. Still a very good item. But specifically, items that I have in my notes here. Items that I've always been thinking is really good is Runeforge Hammer. Runeforge Hammer. Beforehand, I thought you built on a lot of warriors, but I've been coming to find out that even on those gods that have like a little bit of CC, not the craziest, like for example Wukong 3, a lot of fucking, it's really good. You use your Wukong 3 stun, 2-1 autos, everything like that, and you do so much damage. Runeforge is so fucking good. So instead of Blackthorn, in my opinion, you building this, I think you almost always go your Runeforge hammer. On even gods like Mulan, I mean, I think almost every single warrior procs Runeforge. And so I think instead of Blackthorn, I think just going Runeforge on almost every single god is better. Now, those gods that obviously don't proc Runeforge, don't build on them. But even like Cuchulainn, Runeforge is pretty good on. I will say Blackthorn I like a little bit more on Cuchulainn, but Runeforge is still very good on him. So I'd start picking up Runeforge. It's almost an item that I think is necessary on almost every single warrior. So, you know, like gods like Mulan, Sun Wukong, and Odin being 1-2, that doesn't have like consistent CC. I mean, he does, but it's not like a lot of CC like a Horus or a Shiva would have that much value out of it. But with his 3, you can hit that and you get so much extra damage. So basically those setup, and honestly, those Runeforge Hammer helps your team as well a lot. So, let's see. You still have your Jotun start. I didn't put it here, so I guess I can just put it right here. You still have your Jotun start. Not as good as it would be on assassins because of like because warriors basically are. My cat's pushing my mic. It's so annoying. Jotuns has more impact on your assassins rather than your warriors, but you can still build this first up and still have a lot of value. So I can add that there. I wouldn't build it every single time. Let's see. Do I have anything else here? Nothing much. It's just really more so the items than it is like just buffs in general to warriors, ability warriors, and AA warriors that kind of make it to where they're a little bit better. Not so much the items itself. Duality I would not build on warriors, at least as of right now. So for example, let's do like an example build. You still have all the other items, the same thing. Glad Shield, I'd go Runeforge as your second. You can actually go straight into a Runeforge if you like. Very similar to Blackthorn. I like to be a little bit more tankier if I'm not going Blackthorn, because Runeforge, it does similar things to Blackthorn, but it only gives 150 health, whereas Blackthorn gives 350 health. So there's a big difference there. But you can obviously go Runeforge first if you'd like. Onis if you want more mitigations, or Talisman, either or. You can go Genjis too. I don't like Genjis as much as Hunters or on warriors. Pridwin I've been liking a lot more too. Very similar to what I said. AA warriors, very good. And then obviously you can go into a Titan's Bane or a Heartseeker, or, you know, even more tank. Archdruid is very good on warriors. Mantle of Discord, Spirit Robe. Basically all these items, like Guardians, there's a bunch of shit you build on warriors, or you can build on warriors. So these are just like the core items that you always want to be thinking about. For a cookie cutter build, you can go either Blackthorn, Runeforge, Glad Shield, Talisman, Pridwin into a Titan's Bane or a Heartseeker. If you're going to be more team oriented and you have like a trio stack, then you would build yourself more tanky. So I think Archdruids would be a lot better here too, because it does give you a lot of defense, and honestly, you already have damage here to begin with. So what's my cat doing? He's going crazy. And Mystical Mail being in one just on certain gods like Cuchulainn. But you have all these other items very similar. Void Shield, Void Damaru. Keep in mind, I think Void Shield and Damaru, specifically Void Shield, works really well with Runeforge Hammer. Runeforge gives you 15% more damage within your circle, and Void Shield reduces by physical protections by 10%. So you're getting 25% extra damage, basically. In a weird way, not exactly like that, but in a weird way, you're getting basically that much more damage. So if you wanted to do that, you can honestly like double up on Void Shield and Glad Shield. I wouldn't build in this order, but you know, something within this build, and you get so much more damage. And if you wanted to, and you wanted to be freaky, if you know, there's not like magical. Let's say that's just like a Guardian that doesn't do that much damage, and you have like you're up against a Guardian, a Hunter, and like a Warrior. Let's say you're like, I don't even need magical D. I have all the defense I need with my Pridwin or some shit. You could go Titan's Bane, and you basically have, let's see, what's that, 60, 70, like 95 going up to like extra damage. That doesn't work exactly like that, but I mean the amount of percent damage you have, like specifically to this build, would be really, really, really sick. So there could be some potential there for some meme, and actually a lot of damage. Stun and Binding, pretty simple. You know, I mean, gods on like Cuchulainn who can proc it. Cuchulainn got a huge buff. Horus, Shiva. These two items very similar to Guardians, and then obviously Spirit Robe, Mantle, and then that's basically it. I mean, you have your Midgardian, Pestilence, Contagion, and then Brawler's Beat Stick for if you want some anti-heal and you need anti-heal. But very similar to Guardians, you kind of build similar things in that similar order where you have you're building very tanky, but also have a lot of damage with your Rune Forge and or Blackthorn. I wouldn't suggest going double hammer on warriors. But yeah, that's basically it. Not too much changed. Like I said, for warriors, in terms of your builds, most of the changes actually came to, in my opinion, mages, assassins, and that's basically it. Those are your main two, because obviously you have your duality and Curse Weaver on top of Mage Build just being a little bit more, you know, damage oriented for percent pen, and then obviously your Guardians, I think. But you know, I felt like it was enough to talk about some different builds. I mean, Sigil as well too. So, but that is your meta update build video. 11.5. Planning on doing more of these, obviously. We'll see when the next one comes out. Usually it's after like a couple patches. They're talking about 11.6 being like super crazy, like a lot of changes are happening, so we'll see with that. But generally speaking, every 1 to 2, maybe even 3 patches, I'll make these videos. So basically every 1 to 2 months. So I hope you enjoyed, found some enlightenment out of these new builds, extra changes to the meta with the builds. If you want to continue this mini series of a video, like, comment, subscribe. If you like the video in general, like, comment, subscribe. Discord is in the link in the description down below if you haven't joined already. Have a lot of games, people in there are pretty chilled, just all around great community if you'd like to join. Access to tourneys in the future as well. And then have memberships open if you'd like to support me. It's one of the best ways to support me. $3 a month, $2.99. So if you do that, if you'd like, obviously you don't need to. But that's basically it. If you have any feedback, questions, let me know in the comment section down below. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching.